point being is that we don't know what's to come. But the one thing I can say is people need somewhere to live.
How we doing? It's Yatta podcast time. We are here to educate, entertain, and lift the lid. My name is Russ, and on the left I got my boy Aldo Cataldi. On the right I've got Mr. Charles Liddell. It's another Yatta podcast. Keep it locked.
This is going to be the Sammy show. I think maybe I'll get a look in this time.
Yes.
Sure.
I'll have all the cameras on you. And I'll have you as the front.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's only taken me, 12 weeks to get to that point where I get the...
You get the show,
I get the cover shot. All right, so we're going to kick today's podcast off. Obviously, we're missing a big personality today.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, what a shame.
You idiot.
What do I say?
Well, you say you miss him, but he's definitely not missing us. He's lapping it up in Italy.
Yeah, I think he's having a great time.
Yeah, he's eating all the great foods. He's going to come back a little porky little pig, so we can tease him about that.
I'm loving the stories every 5 seconds.
I know,
and the food looks great.
It does. It looks amazing. But anyway, we digress as he enjoys his well-deserved time off. Another podcast, another week.
Yeah.
And here we are. So
yeah.
I was actually thinking on the way in today that I think we need to refresh our intro. I'd like to do a new...
Really?
Yeah. So
what? So then you can have more of the attention. It can be all on you.
Yeah,
so
we could do that.
Your voice.
We could do that. I was more thinking something.
The tune is you
upbeat.
Humming in the background.
No, I'd like something a little bit more upbeat, like something like I do like our intro, but I just think something a bit more personal. Because I mean, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is connect with people in the space, and it's not so much about us; it's about them, and trying to be useful. So we are lifting the lid, which is cool, but I think we can do something a little bit innovative. I like to challenge
agree.
you. I like to challenge
Yeah,
you, Sammy.
innovative's the way to go, isn't it?
Yes. So
So
moving on from there. So look, in the interests of I guess being interesting, I think one of the things
we've got the right person.
Well, yeah, we've got Sam here. Sam's on board.
So I bore myself sometimes. Wow.
Don't be silly. Last night was really interesting. Now Sam had COVID last week, so we missed him. And
I'm back. I'm still alive.
He's back on board, and as some of you might realise, he's a very diligent, hard-working young man. And to the point where it got to, I think it was like 8:30 last night, and I get a phone call from young Sam's mum going, "Have you seen Sam?" And I'm like, "Oh my God." I saw him when I left work, and I'm sure everything's all right. But I checked the cameras, and there's no Sam, and checked the car, there's no Sam. Everybody goes into a mild state of panic, and poor old Sam had forgotten to tell anyone he went to cricket. It was pissing down rain for those of you who are not in Perth, but a beautiful day for cricket training.
We're indoors, thankfully. Obviously, cricket training pre-season started up 2 weeks ago. Then I caught COVID, so unfortunately I had to stay at home for a week, and then excited just to get life back to normal.
Anyway, long story short, you're back at cricket. Things are starting to get back to normal, and here we go. So in the interest, again, going back to where we started, is trying to provide some people with some interesting content, but also something that's helpful.
Yeah, I'm interested to see where your segue is between my mum worrying about me and freaking out to homes. I'm interested to see where your link between the two here.
Right. So one of the things I've been looking at, there is definitely. So one of the things that I've sort of been looking at is some interesting data coming out of the US and also the UK. And you may recall like one of the conversations I had with you earlier was in regards to what is it going to look like when you have kids, and what are they going to do with regards to home ownership? Because there's a big trend over in the US and in the UK and all through Europe where home ownership is kind of foreign. It's unachievable, unless you're uber rich or part of an elite sort of family that has big income and those sorts of things, or you inherit property. But for the most part, it's not even part of someone's normal thought process, and that sort of evolved over time. I think when my grandparents were growing up, home ownership was definitely part of their goals and what they strived for. And as we move forward, I was thinking about my kids, and I look at you very dearly as a son
Oh,
sometimes.
thank you. You're too kind.
But my thinking is that looking at the rate that rental rates are changing. Even that is becoming really scary to sort of think about where it is now. It was probably the same for my folks and their folks and so on and so forth. But looking at what it looks like moving forward, what's it going to be when you want to buy a home, and then what's it going to be like for your kids to buy a home?
So if we just stick on interest rates, for example, are you saying the interest rates are going to be similar? They're going to be better? They're going to be worse? Like
Interest rates, I guess they roll. So what I mean by roll is they go up and down. And like I said, I think in one of the previous podcasts, my parents bought a house when it was at 22%. They still bought a home. That's what they wanted to do. But again, it was something that they had to work really hard towards. Interest rates is not what I'm talking about. It's more the cost of living in relation to the income that you earn. So at the moment, we're very fortunate in Australia where we can achieve home ownership. It's becoming more challenging with regards to rental, because particularly here in Perth, we've got under 1% vacancies for rentals, which is proving super challenging for those in the rental market, which is pushing a lot of people into buying homes. But as we see that happen, it pushes the price of new homes up as well, because there's a shortage of land and so on and so forth. Looking at overseas information that's coming out, a lot of the big cities and a lot of the more occupied, states and territories, in Europe and in the States, big increases. 12 months has seen, in excess of 20% increases in rent. Pretty harsh if you're...
And they weren't like the New Yorks, the San Francisco.
No.
They were very much kind of like where we are, kind of in terms of like population.
Yeah, it's kind of like Phoenix and California and San Jose and those sorts of places.
California a state?
Yeah, California. It was a couple of there's a couple of cities in California.
No,
Yes.
teasing.
No, you're right in pointing it out. But overall, it's a fairly significant growth in that, and people's wages or income haven't reflected that growth. But the conversation is more about knowing that. What does that do to your mindset in regards to home ownership? Like, I know it's different for me because obviously I'm at a different stage and I own my home, and it's quite different.
Yeah.
But we've spoken about you would like to buy a home at some point.
Agreed. Yeah.
You've got a lovely dedicated relationship, and that could evolve into something. But you're only, what is it, 21, 22? 19. Yeah.
20 on Sunday.
Oh, birthday boy coming up. He gave it away here on the show. You heard it first. 21 on Sunday.
20.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm old.
But
I'm in my midlife crisis.
midlife crisis. Hardly.
That happened a few years ago, though.
Your crisis or
Yeah.
your midlife?
My midlife crisis.
I think you got a few more to come, son.
Oh, thank God.
So the question is to you, how do you see home ownership, or rental, or, what does your lifestyle potentially look like if you think of you in the future?
That's a very interesting question, because I feel like asking that question kind of opens up a lot of avenues. Like, what is life even going to be like in, say, 20
Wow,
years?
You've just gone so deep there.
No, but have I? Like, in a way, it's actually, yes, it can be quite kind of, anxious, like what's going to happen, but it's also quite exciting. Like, we're evolving, and just like look at where we are compared to, like, say 30 years ago. So I guess you could kind of flip it on its head and say, hey, life could it's interesting. Like, there could be aspects of life that, could be significantly improved. But more to your question, it's interesting because I'm at a point now where I'm thinking of buying my first home, let alone buying the home for my future kids.
So, look, I wasn't.
You're making me really think about this.
Well, I'm glad, but it's more like my question to you is: would you buy your home or would you rent? And what's your thought process in saying why you want to buy over renting?
So is that for like
you.
me now or me in the future?
For you now.
For me now? Okay, cool. I can answer that. So I think personally, like, I've always been interested in buying just because, like, it's your place. You own it. You've got that real sense of freedom. Because to be honest, like, when you buy, like, when you get into a home or like when you move out of home. So like say, for people like my age who they're just looking to get out of the house, it's that sense of freedom. It's like buying your own car. There's a real sense of freedom. And to be honest with you, in my personal opinion, I feel like renting doesn't quite give you that freedom. I feel like
It's kind of like driving mum's car, isn't it?
yeah,
You got to
Agreed.
give it back. You got to get the keys. I
Yeah.
think that's a really great way of putting it. It's not to put you on the spot. It's more. I'm trying to understand. Even reflecting on where I was. I mean, I just wanted to accumulate, my own security and wealth, and I'm not wealthy by any means of the imagination, but I like the idea of what home ownership gave me in regards to security, where I didn't have that when I was renting, and I rented as well. And I guess the biggest pain point for me was that whether I was at home or whether I was paying someone else, they were getting my money and I was getting to live somewhere and I got nothing to show for it. Whereas if I did it for myself, I had something to show for it. So that was just me. But I think we've sort of gone a little bit off track in regards to it, but it's still a very important question, because as a business being, first home specialists or trying to sell to first home buyers, it's trying to connect with them and give them the right information for those that are thinking about this as part of their future, and whether it fits for them. Now, I know, for example, Indonesia, particularly Bali, and this is a big segue here, are really pushing very heavily on this nomadic lifestyle. Now,
what do you mean by that?
So nomadic lifestyle is where a lot of people are able to do things remotely. So, and we observed that all the way through COVID, where, you see office vacancies at record highs now because big businesses gone, you know what, we don't have to pay these big rents.
Yep.
We can put the burden and the cost of operating our business into the family home, provide a nice computer, a couple of screens. We don't have to worry about the electricity. We don't have to worry about internet, all that sort of stuff. We'll give a small incentive in regards to your remuneration, but you can work anywhere. Now, that's affected a lot of productivity, and we can go in. That's a whole sort of side conversation on that. But it comes back to home ownership. So you can now do a lot of your work or any of your work from anywhere in the world. And you're having these migrant communities that are following the summer round. So they'll go and spend summer in Bali, and then they'll go over to the States, or they'll go over to Mexico, or all these really awesome exotic places. And, home ownership is not really on the radar, but it is a very young community for the most part. And again, I'm generalizing there. But what happens when you sort of hit 50, 60, and this moving around lifestyle doesn't sort of fit with you? Where do you go from there? So these are all very sort of open-ended questions. Yeah. But I find it very interesting to think about it, because it just means that, obviously there are so many different options to moving ahead in planning your future, and not only your future, but how that's going to affect the next generation. And you can take a selfish approach to it and go, look, whatever happens to them, same as, your parents, to a lesser extent, they had less variance to worry about. and you rightly said, I think about what are my kids going to do? Like when I went to school, my parents go, well, you can be an architect, an engineer, you can do this. They're very binary, straightforward, roles. Building a computer and owning a computer and operating a business from a computer when my parents were growing up was probably a little bit alien.
Yeah.
Yet that's what I did. When I was at school, I built my first computer, ran my first business, from the first computer that I built, which is like, completely bizarre to them. And now that is probably the simplest way of getting into the workforce. And
now all of a sudden that's actually quite common.
Correct. Well, it is. It's a lot of it. I mean, look at all the stuff that you
What was
do.
it? You were a lost leader.
I was a lost leader.
Isn't that a saying? It's like with what was it? Uber.
Yes.
When they first did it, you know what I mean, don't you?
No, I'm trying to get there. A
Okay,
lost
so it's
leader
like
in regards
with-
to marketing is where you do something at a loss to create leads for other opportunities. So,
But wasn't it like with Uber?
Yeah.
When they first did it, they were the only ones to have that kind of level of ride sharing. And they were very much, and because they were the only ones, they kind of weren't getting the traction, so to say. And then all of a sudden, other companies start doing it, but because they were first, they're ahead of the game.
A little bit. I kind of guess they're a first adopter, perhaps maybe is what you're trying to sort of lean towards, where they came up with a concept which sort of revolutionized the way that people traveled and challenged the status quo by way of empowering people like Airbnb have done and allowed people to generate income. But that's still a physical kind of trade, if you know what I mean.
I was just trying to talk you up. I was just trying to say, look at you being so innovative, look at you in high school running your own business off of like the computer you made.
No, well, I appreciate the accolades there. I'm not sure whether they're as well deserved as you place them, but I think the point being is that we don't know what's to come. But the one thing I can say is people need somewhere to live. That doesn't change. People need food to eat. They need clothes to wear.
Yep.
They need water to drink. Those sorts of things.
So where the demand is, and obviously the demand for living is essentially always going to be there.
Correct.
Like people need a place to live, and where there's the demand, there's the solution.
Well, that's where the innovation comes from. Speaking of innovation, and this is where you can put some shiny graphics up in the middle of the podcast. There is this amazing CGI pitch that Dubai have done for
Because they want to be the most livable city by 2030.
Yes, thanks, Sam. That's exactly what they want to be. However, have you seen the roadmap for it?
I have briefly, yes.
It is absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Very, very ambitious. But look at where they've come at, like where they've come
from. This is the place where they said, building the Palms was very ambitious. And they did it. Supremely funded.
Well, they've done very well for themselves.
Yes, and they got the Burj Khalifa, which is the tallest building in the world, as everybody knows.
Yep.
So I wouldn't put it past them.
No.
I wouldn't put it past them.
What was it? By 2030, they want to be the most livable city.
I think it's something like that.
Yeah. 2030, I think, or 2050.
2060 is another statement for you, where I think the US and the UK want to have 80% of the cars on the road to be electric. So another little thing that's out there.
No little nugget, yeah. Well, it's interesting to see, like, because it's all going to be happening quite relatively soon. Like, even though, well, I guess it's very cliche. It's like, 2030 isn't that far away. But, like, I guess in the whole kind of bigger picture, it's actually quite close. So, very interesting to see kind of where things go. And I guess that kind of circles back to what I was saying earlier about how, yes, the future can be, there is that level of uncertainty. There's the whole climate change, etc. But then there's like things like this where just like innovations are going to be happening left, right, and center, and it's all going to be happening relatively soon. Just as I, you know, as my kids,
As you grow up.
yeah, as I grow up,
Yes, and grow
as
old.
I spread my wings into this world.
I want to push these buttons.
I think they've got sound effects on them.
Should we push them?
Yeah, do it. I think
Do anything.
it'll be the top ones.
Can anybody hear anything? No. All right, we'll have
Shame.
to program them up.
That's what post-production's for.
Correct. Maybe you have to push them twice. No. Anyway,
It's just making a clunking noise on the
on the
mixer.
sound. Anyway, so I'll leave you with this. One thing is certain: people need somewhere to live, and that's why I believe everybody who wants a home should have a home. Because at the very least, you're providing for you and your family now could potentially look after them
Yep.
in the future.
Yep.
Not saying it's going to be like that forever, but
But like people are always going to need somewhere to live though.
correct. And
So as long as people are on this earth, there's going to be that.
correct. And one of the things that I really enjoyed on my travels, because I'm just recollecting now that Eldo's over there in Europe and making us all feel, insignificant
Oh, I'm
with
okay.
his food. These old homes that people live in the south of France and in Italy that are hundreds of years old, and they retrofit the power, they retrofit the gas and electric, and
Just like
it's
what your dad does.
my dad.
Yeah.
Oh, my father-in-law.
Father-in-law, sorry, my apologies.
Yes. So that's he, I don't know if he deals with the really old houses, but
He kind of makes him look that way.
he builds new houses
To
as
look
well as-
old.
Well, in that particular circumstance that we looked at, that was designed to fit in with the community there. So, and that's what the owner wanted as well.
Yeah.
But all new tech in it, which was pretty cool. But it's more like when you see these old villages that you walk through that are like 300, 400, 500, 600 years old, and people are still living them with the families now. With the flat screen televisions, watching Netflix. And a couple of generations before, they were walking up the hill with buckets of water because that's the only way they could have a bath.
Yeah.
But interesting times. So thank you, Sammy, for your assistance and involvement today.
No, thank you. Thanks for being my guest on this show.
Thanks, Sam. All good. All right, till next time.
All right, see you later, guys.